We're going to do a very brief lesson today on converting units of area. Now, the reason we're talking about this is because it's sort of a common mistake that students make when they're doing area instead of length. So when we talk about length, we'll come back to these in just a second. Let's use our common length measurements. We start with meters, for example. And if we go a little bit smaller than meters, we talk about centimeters. If we go a little smaller than that, we talk about millimeters. If we talk about bigger than that, we typically talk about kilometers. Now, if we're going from, for example, meters to kilometers or kilometers, what do? We start out with 2,000 meters and we want that in kilometers. We have to do what? We have to divide by 1,000. Divide by 1,000. We're going back the other direction and we want to go from kilometers to meters. What do? We multiply by 1,000. Same thing, centimeters. What do? We divide by 100 or we multiply by 100. Going from millimeters to centimeters, we divide by 10 or we multiply by 10 if we're going from centimeters to millimeters. That's all revision. That's all length, how we convert one unit of length into another unit of length. When we're talking about area, though, it's very similar but different in a significant way. So let's talk about this square right here. Assume it's a square, clearly it's not. But if we said that this square was 3 meters on a side, what's the area of that square? Well, the area of that square, we figure 3 threes, we multiply 3 times 3, and we get that the area equals 9. Right? Now, let's change our discussion just slightly, and let's say that that square was instead 1 meter on a side. 1 meter on a side. How many square meters is that? 1 times 1 meter squared. And we put a squared on there because we're talking about square units, not just units of length. 2 dimensions instead of 1. Now, the common mistake is, well, if that's 1 meter squared, then how many square centimeters is that? And we think, well, we're going from meters to centimeters, so we multiply by 100, and we get 100 square centimeters. It doesn't work quite that way. And let me give you an example. I'm going to blow it up just a little bit to make it simpler. Let's assume, for sake of discussion, let's change this to 1 centimeter. 1 centimeter, that is equal to 1 centimeter squared. Okay? If I want to turn it into millimeters, I don't multiply by 10. Rather, let's assume now I'm blowing that up from 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter. How long is it on the side? It's 10 millimeters. Oops, 10 millimeters. So my 1 centimeter squared becomes equal to 10 times 10, which gives me 100 millimeters squared. 100 millimeters squared. Now, the way to think about it using this is that instead of dealing with millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers, what we're dealing with is those units squared. Millimeters squared, centimeters squared, meters squared, kilometers squared. And so we also square these conversion numbers. 10 squared, 100 squared, 1,000 squared, 1,000 squared, 100. So when we convert from centimeters to millimeters, we multiply by 10 squared, which is 100. Or if we're going from millimeters to centimeters, we do by 100. When we go from meters to centimeters, 100 squared is 10,000. And when going from kilometers to meters, we don't multiply by 1,000, we multiply by 1,000 squared, which is 1 million. and that is converting units of area.